Hello folks. You know, they call me the Nightflyer because back in the 70s when my club and I introduced night flying to everybody, I wrote an article in Model Airplane News magazine. I also wrote an article in RCM magazine called Radio Controlled Night Flying, Believe It or Not. It was the first time anybody ever heard of night flying, and that's why I wrote the article. Well, our club had already been night flying for years and very successfully. Well, it was hard to get anybody to believe we were actually doing that, so I decided to write the article in hopes that others would actually try it and find out that it's actually easier to fly in the dark than the day, especially if the proper lights set up. There were some important things I had to write about, and that was stuff that we learned. First of all, we had no doubt about using the standard FAA colors. That's red on the left and green on the right. Those FAA colors are standard so that if you're actually flying in a real plane and you saw another plane up there with you, you could always tell if he was coming or going. Well, with the models, it was the same thing. You know, being we're standing on the ground, it's a big advantage to know that red is always left. I remember that because port wine is red and port means left. Anyway, flying Christmas trees are beautiful to watch, but easy to get confused for me, so I always stuck to the standard FAA colors. The other thing that was very important was to make the lights able to be seen while the plane was at any angle. You know, sometimes the wing would cover one of the lights and you would not know where you were for a second. We didn't have LEDs or LED strips back then, so I invented light extenders out of clear acrylic. It was like a big fiber optic. It made the lights brighter and showed up from any angle. Well, you know, I've been flying all kinds of quads for a couple years now, and I like them all too, especially my heavy quad from Brian's Flying. It's down right now for prop adapters, and I have not put lights on it. Well, God knows I've got a lot of machines I can't tell the front of even in the daylight. I need lights on all of them. So when I got my first GPS controlled quad, the DJI Phantom from Atlanta Hobby, I was excited it already had lights. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. But I was very disappointed to see that there were green lights on the back and red on the front. You know, that's like switching the clutch pedal with the brake pedal for me. Oh yeah, I can do it okay, but not comfortably. You know, some of you may have seen my review video on the DJI Phantom and know I disliked the fact the lights were not standard FAA. You know, we fly really late and into the pitch dark, and that way our eyes get totally adjusted to the dark and we have night vision. It's very important. You know, dust flyers can still see the outline of their planes, but if they fly in pitch black, they're going to appreciate the lights. Well, I studied it and I thought, well, maybe I'll open it up. And then one of my subscribers said he changed the lights right on his, so I figured I could do it too. I watched his video and showed it flying, but didn't show at all how he changed the lights. So in that case, I'm going to open it up and I'm going to show you what's inside and what is required to change the lights if you're a real night flyer and want to change yours too. It was not the simple light changes I expected, but it still only took about an hour. So here are the simple steps to do it. First, you're going to remove the props. The body and props are marked for direction with arrows, so remove and replacement is pretty easy. Then remove the hex screws on the bottom. There are 3 per side, one near the landing gear strut. Then remove the small Phillips screw at the arm's tip. The body will then lift up. You can unplug the GPS sensor if you want, but I left mine on as it sits nicely right beside the unit so I could work on it. Inside, you're going to see the ESC speed controllers in the arms. Well, I found the lights are integrated in the speed controllers, so they've got to be removed and switched to actually change them. The right front and left rear must be swapped to get left all red and green all right. The wires are all clearly marked, so it makes it pretty easy. Well, I decided to remove the entire motor and speed controller just to have less soldering to do. The motors easily are removed with 4 hex screws each. I then unsoldered the 2 wires near the center of the board. You're going to need a good soldering iron to do this, as DJI used high temp solder for these connections, and that's good. Then unplug the 2 servo wire connectors from the NASA controller and remove the ESCs and switch them. Screw the motors down, then screw the ESCs down, making sure to put the diffuser lens for the lights in the bottom. Next, you're going to want to resolder those main gray wires as marked. They're shown on the main board here. Make sure to do a good job. At this point, you're going to want to plug the servo connector wires back into the nozzle. Well, the left rear is number 1 and the right front is number 3. You're going to immediately see that the right front wires, and there are only 2 per connector by the way, is too short. So instead of splicing in a longer wire, I decided to use another servo connector that I had with the wire instead. That meant only 2 solder joints versus 4 per ESC. Well, that's it. Look everything over really good. Carefully put the top back on, making sure to use all of the screws. Then run the machine with no props to make sure all is well and everything's going in the right direction. Well, before I put the props on, I want to balance them this time as they seem a tiny bit out. I didn't do it when I bought the unit. I used my homemade balancer. It's made from an old brushless motor, as you may have seen in a previous video of mine. Always put the unit on my drill press and then run the motor. It gives enough vibration that the bearing is really free, won't stick, and I get accurate balance. I use small pieces of vinyl tape to achieve balance. Just make sure to overlap the leading edge so they won't come off in flight. Okay, I've got the props on. Let's take it outside in the dark and try it out. Again, I had to do this because I have been using FAA colors for many years and I'm kind of used to it. Anything else was confusing and I don't want to crash a beautiful unit like this by pilot error. Alright, let's see how it looks in the dark. Armed. Land. Well, thanks a lot for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you're a Phantom guy who likes to fly in the dark like me, FAA style, then these mods are for you. Also, if you guys have a second, just go ahead and please subscribe. Stay tuned, because you're really going to like what's coming next. Happy flying.